Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today I want to make a video about Elden Ring Nightreign, all the good, all the bad, and how do I review the game. To get that out of the way, I would consider this game like an 8. An objective person who's not a glazer like myself would probably put around a 6 to a 7. But if you are rating it anything less than a 6, you are actually a hater. You cannot be trusted, like your opinion is made irrelevant, and you are emotionally compromised. Because as a value this game offers, it far exceeds most games that are coming out considerably. So with that in mind, you cannot rate this as a lower game just because you're a FromSoft hater or some shit like that. Um, with that being said, let's get into the video. Let's talk about the classes, and this is our character select screen. As you see, we have 8 characters to select from right now. I would imagine at least another 4 more will be coming to the game in the future, but that's speculation. Our first class to look at is the Wilder. He is kind of the all-around class. There's nothing he does bad, except, use spells and stuff like that, but outside of that, he can pretty much use every single weapon. He has a mobility tool, his passive can literally save him from dying, and he has basically an instant stagger ultimate. Our next class is the Guardian, who's meant to have a more defensive playstyle, sit with a shield and poke with it and stuff like that. He has a unique guard style. As his passive, he has a skill that can make a tornado, and his ultimate can res players and also prevent them from taking damage from a time. Our next class is the Iron Eye. He is meant to be like a ranger. He's all about bows and stuff like that. He has a passive that allows him to find more items dropping from enemies and crates and stuff like that, which can be very useful in a game like this. His character skill is Mark, so you can apply a mark on enemies, make them take more damage, and it'll explode for extra damage. His ultimate is a giant great bow that he pulls out that has a giant AoE arrow shot to it, and it can do massive damage and stagger. Our next class is the Duchess. She's kind of a rogue assassin character. She has a unique dodge as her passive. Her skill is Restage, which basically resets a timer on all damage applied to an enemy. Her ultimate allows her and the rest of her squad to go invisible. The next class is the Raider. He's kind of the brute. He can take a bunch of damage and he can dish it out. His passive revolves around him taking damage and being able to deal more. His character skill is called Retaliate, allowing him to take damage and then he uppercuts whoever's fighting him. His ultimate summons a totem that gives him and his teammates a damage buff and it can stagger enemies. The next character on our list is the Revenant. Her entire kit revolves around summoning spirits. Her passive, enemies she kills, can be brought back as ghosts to fight for her as a summon. Her character skill is a harp that she can use to summon allies. And her ult gives her a buff and her team where they can't die, and it'll buff her summons with unique attacks. Our next character is the Recluse. She is the dedicated mage of the game. Her passive revolves around her being able to deal magic damage, and she can absorb that elemental type and give her FP back, which plays into her character skill, the Magic Cocktail, which once she has 3 elemental types, she can combine them to make a unique spell concoction based on those element types. And her ultimate, Soul Blood Song, leaves a mark on all enemies. When damaging those enemies, it gives you HP and FP back. And our last character is the Executor. His passive is Tenacity, which whenever he recovers from an ailment, he gets a damage buff for a short time. His character skill is the Suncatcher, which is his cursed blade. It's a unique katana that he can use at any time during a run. And his ultimate is the Aspect of the Crucible, where he turns into a giant beast and he can just start throwing hands. Next thing we talk about is the expeditions. This is going to be the main gameplay loop of the game. You have 3 nights, and on your 3rd night, you fight a Night Lord. The Night Lord are one of the 8 following bosses. The Tricephalos, being the very first one you'll ever fight. It's a 3-headed dog. Gaping Jaw. It's a big dragon with a giant mouth. Sentient Pest. It's a scorpion with a moth. Augur. It's a giant fish blob thing. Equilibrious Beast is a giant goat who makes deals with you. Dark Drift Knight, who's a centaur with 1 arm. Fissure in the Fog, an ice dragon. Night Aspect, he is basically Artorias. And most recently added, the alternative fights. So, these are the same fights as before and the same runs, but it'll end with the boss having a new phase. This is much harder, and these will now be on weekly rotations. This was just added. So once you've picked an expedition, the game will matchmake you. Once you've found enough people to start a run, you will then get to a character select screen where you pick the character, and then you'll play a cutscene where you and your team who picked your characters will get on a Spirit Bird, go to Limveld, that being the playable space where the game takes place. Then you will drop in, you'll kill a bunch of enemies and a bunch of bosses, explore the land, getting buffs and weapons, until you can finally fight your Night Lord boss. And when that happens, you'll get to this big door where you and your teammates are going to have to push it open. It's a cutscene. And beyond that, it's going to be your Night Lord fight. In the gameplay being shown here, it's going to be the enhanced version of Adele, that being the Gaping Jaw fight. This was my first time fighting this version of the boss. It was pretty difficult for a first run. After you beat the boss, you will be rewarded with a bunch of relics, which we'll go over in the next segment. And you'll get a currency that you can use to buy more relics and skins for your characters. Now let's talk about relics. Relics are the main form of progression in the game. This allows you to augment your character, give them more health, damage, and sometimes even unique abilities depending on what the relic does. For example, we have the Wilder's Earring. Wilder gets 1 plus character skill use. This is the grapple. Wilder's art activation spreads fire, so his ultimate now detonates on fire, and stamina recovers with each successive attack. Meaning anytime you hit an enemy, you get stamina back. This is a very good relic overall. So a lot of people brought up criticism that getting guaranteed relics such as the Wilder's Earring is a point of contention. I would disagree. This is a guaranteed way to not get completely screwed over by RNG and getting bad relics. Now I want to talk about some of the problems of this game, starting with matchmaking. Matchmaking has been consistently bad through this game's lifecycle. It's been especially bad on PlayStation. Furthermore, matchmaking during a Remembrance is abysmal. How it works is, if you have a Remembrance active, you cannot join someone else who does not have a Remembrance active unless they're, say, on your friends list, like you invited them. But if that's the case, what ends up happening is you have to find people that don't have a Remembrance active, so that already limits the pool of people who are going to be playing, because maybe a lot of people want to do the Remembrances, so you're not being able to play with them. Second, and if you do try to do a Remembrance while someone else has one, say in the case of an invite, what ends up happening is that whoever takes priority will get the Remembrance done. That's how it works. And another problem with this system is that if your Remembrance requires you to be a boss specifically, well, that could be really damaging to the game, because if no one is fighting that boss, then you cannot get it done. Period. Okay? Now, while yes, you could beat the game solo, the game was not designed that way, and it's still pretty brutal in a lot of cases. Of course, you're going to find YouTubers and challenge runners, say like Yui or Little Aggie, who can do this kind of thing, but that's like, they are a higher echelon than like the majority of the people who play this game. Straight up. So while yes, it is possible, it's not very easy. The odds are not in your favor, right? Unless you like know how to like break the game in a lot of ways, or you know how to like read the code, or you understand how certain buffs interact with each other. With that being said, the Remembrance matchmaking is abysmal. And probably the most pressing issue of them all, there is no crossplay. How do you make a multiplayer game that lives and dies based on its player counts with no crossplay? I've heard some people say that, oh, it's Sony's doing, like as if PlayStation's the problem, when that makes no sense, and that tells me that you don't know anything about crossplay. This was a design choice, like deliberately, whether that was because of like server monetization or whatever. For some reason, Bandai Namco and FromSoft basically agreed on this to doing this for whatever reason. I don't know why, but there's no crossplay. That is a huge turnoff for so many people, and I don't know why that's not in the game. They need to add that in future. Another problem with the game is that there is no duo queuing currently in the game. They have announced they will be adding this in the future, but as of right now, there's currently not. The problem with this is that we are talking about the Souls community. The type of people who will make fun of you for summoning help during a boss fight or to beat a boss, which means there's a pretty high likelihood that these people don't have friends. So to find 2 other people to play the game with you is kind of a problem. And trying to find even one person might already be a problem, but it's far more achievable. Another problem the game has is there's no game chat. So the communication with your teammates is very minimal. It's done through pinging and whatnot, which is fine, I guess, but because there's no way to contact or be able to actually speak with the other person you're playing with, this creates a huge issue for random lobbies. Another issue I would like to lay out is that because there's no way to really keep in contact with the people you play with, you might not be able to find people that are really good, or worse, you might find someone who you really liked, or you guys had a lot of fun together, and you might want to run more missions with that person, but now you can't because there's no way to contact that person after the run is over. And in a lot of cases, you're showing your character name and not your user ID, so finding this person even after the match is made that much more difficult. In fact, there have been websites made for LFG groups to find people to play the game with, and that's just how bad the matchmaking is in this game and needs to be addressed. The next problem I want to go over is the lack of diversity in your builds that you're going to get. So while the characters themselves are pretty unique, and the weapons that they're best with are also kind of their own class, in your actual run, you're going to run into like the same weapons multiple times because, say for the Wilder, he's good with greatswords, so he's going to find more greatswords than he will anything else. This is good and bad for 2 reasons. One, the diversity of the game, you're not really messing around with a lot of weapons. But the better part is there are certain skills that only activate with their unique weapons, or weapons that they have unique movesets for. So with that being said, it's actually best in some cases to get a weapon that you're comfortable with, but also at the same time, it might be a bad thing if you find a really good weapon, like say a legendary or whatever, you can't actually use it because maybe your whole build was around, say, Greatsword in the case of Wilder. Another thing that's a problem is the actual roguelike elements where you get your buffs and whatnot. The most unique buffs that you can realistically get are the ones that activate on walking. If you're not landing those consistently, the game doesn't really change that much. It's mostly you're going to get more stamina regeneration or health, and sometimes damage negation. That's about it. That's not varied enough to really warrant the roguelike title. Another one of my other issues is characters feeling underwhelming. So I'm looking at Guardian right here, and he needs several buffs. For one, he needs way more stamina. His damage output is extremely low, and while yes, he is defensive, being defensive does not equate to damage. It just equates to survivability, which in a lot of cases, how a lot of people are going to end up playing this game is going to be through DPS checking. Another way to fix some of his issues is that he should be able to get a charge attack on all guard counters, because as of right now, he only gets it on halberds. I think Duchess also needs a buff. Her backstab relic needs to be completely overhauled and needs to work as true invisibility, because as it is right now, it makes her partially harder to see for enemies, and it makes her quiet. Like she doesn't make sound. This is not enough for a character who's meant to be played around the whole invisibility thing. That's the reason why you take this skill, is to constantly chain backstab. And there's already a relic in the game that completely dwarfs this one by comparison that you get from killing a boss. Another issue is that her dexterity scaling is only a B. It should be an A, because as it is right now, her preferred weapon type, the daggers, which is the one she gets the unique moveset on, is getting outclassed by the Executor, who has an S in dexterity, and this shouldn't be the case. Even if you get one that has a high int scaling, which by the way is her highest stat, it becomes a problem because she's not keeping up with the damage that he can deal. Now, to be fair, she does have her rewind skill, but that's not enough to make up for the fact she just has low damage compared to another class that's meant to be a raw DPS. Also, her not spawning with the staff is such a bizarre choice, considering her highest stat is intelligence. So her not being able to automatically be able to cast spells the moment she drops in is just bizarre. I also think Raider needs a buff. For one, his healing on alt skill with his rock is really bad because it only works whenever you're killing enemies, which means it only works whenever you're in, say, the middle of a camp or whatnot. When you're killing little ads, that's the only time you'll get healed from this. It needs to be swapped to heal on hit, and while yes, this technically kind of encroaches on the Recluse's alt, the difference is hers isn't a damage alt and it's meant to get FP back. That is the main source. While yes, the healing is a benefit, this is also a skill that you have to put on him. Another change that needs to happen to Raider is his other skill, where granting poise to enemies near the totem. The issue with this is that most characters do not need poise. A Recluse and Revenant are going to do nothing with more poise. Poise reduces flinch and stun. So making the rock give like a 50% DR as a skill would be really powerful and almost an instant run anytime you used it, and it's going to actually help you get people up because now you can just keep focusing on reviving someone while taking that damage. Revenant is another character I think needs a buff, mainly through her summons. I think most of her kit is actually really good, but her summons are a problem. They don't have enough health to tank actual boss damage, and they don't do enough damage to contribute to killing a boss. So my proposition to this problem is that her summons level with her, meaning at level 15 they will be the strongest they can be, they deal ass loads of damage, and they can absorb a bunch of damage, and that's how they should work. And as a bonus, I think the summons should be transparent, because they get in the way of whatever you're doing a lot of times, and it can be really annoying for your teammates who are trying to fight or, say, cast spells or use a bow, and they can't see through your summons, which creates a bit of a headache. And finally, Executor needs a boatload of buffs. He is probably the most compromised character in the entire game. A lot of his kit just doesn't synergize well, and that has to do a lot with his arcane scaling. So he has an S in arcane, which means he's really good with applying ailments, so like bleed, frostbite, and etc. One of the problems with this is actually his passive. Because of how his passive works, where you need to recover from the ailment to get the buff, that makes no sense. How it should work is if he takes an ailment, a teammate takes an ailment, or an enemy takes an ailment, he gets a buff for a period of time. This would significantly make his passive more usable. He also has the unique skill that with Cursed Sword equipped, his attacks drain HP to do more damage. This is a huge problem. For one, you are losing health for just attacking. Two, it doesn't do much of a damage increase, while the Cursed Sword also gains no benefit from his arcane scaling, so you're no longer applying statuses, making his DPS output way lower than it already is now with the Cursed Sword equipped. So, two key points. He does less damage already by having it equipped, and he's losing HP. Both of these things should not be the case. The Cursed Sword should be doing way more damage, and he shouldn't have a skill that increases the damage of the Cursed Sword just so he loses HP. Second buff to the Cursed Sword, he has a unique skill that allows him to heal on deflect. Now, it misreads, it's on activation of the amp state. The amp state is when the sword glows gold, and when this happens, he gets about a 5 to 6% heal, which of course is not good, which needs to have the heal changed to either 5% per deflect, or on activation of the amp state, it goes to 30. The reason being is because you want to make sure you're actually getting the most out of this, and it isn't a complete waste of time. The Cursed Sword is a unique part of his kit, but there's no real incentive to actually use it. Another buff I'd like to see that could replace the HP loss for more damage skill is that whenever he enters Amp State and does his unique Ash of War attack with the Cursed Blade, it debuffs enemies and makes their resistances 50% less than what they already are, meaning you'll be able to swap back to your primary weapons and cause more bleed and frostbite. The reason we do this is so whenever you pull out the Cursed Blade, you're not losing that much DPS in the long run of the fight. This will also incentivize you to pull out the Cursed Sword more and make use of it in actual combat to keep resetting these debuffs. And this debuff will also allow your team to apply their ailments as well. And finally, we talk about his ultimate. His ultimate gives him double HP, which is nice, but does not equate for the fact that your hitbox is increased by 30 times, so you will end up getting hit more. And even though the HP increase is massive, it does not equate for all the extra damage you'll be taking for the increased hitbox. So giving his ultimate about a 30% damage reduction will go a long way of keeping him alive. While he does have a skill when he does the howl, it can heal him, which is nice, but the heal isn't all that great. I would also like to see the duration of the ult increased about 5 to 10 seconds, so you have more time to mess around with it, because the dog is really cool, but you don't get a whole lot of time to be in it. Another issue I have with the dog is that dying in it immediately puts you down. So if you just popped ult, you get 3 tapped by, say, a boss, then you wasted the ult and you're immediately down, and now your team has to pick you up. This is not good gameplay design. What this realistically should do is bring you back at maybe 1 HP, you return back to normal form, and so that way you need to immediately heal, or you just get a full heal from going in it anyways, and so when you come back, you're back to full HP. Whatever sounds more balanced or fair. These are all the changes I'd like to see done to all these characters. So now I want to talk about difficulty. Some people say the game is too easy, some people say the game is too hard, and to be honest, it's kind of somewhere in the middle. It's too easy for people who have spent 1,000 hours in Elden Ring or have 1,000 hours in Dark Souls and whatnot, such as myself. I would say this game is relatively easy because I understand those games in and out. If you are someone who's only played the game once or twice, say Elden Ring, and you've only done 1 or 2 playthroughs and completed the game, yes, this will be a challenging experience, and it's completely different to that game. You are constantly on a timer, so doing things efficiently is the end goal. Now, I also want to address the Elden Ring problem. It took me a while to understand this, but now that this game came out, I'm starting to realize this, and it was right there in front of me the whole time. I didn't know it. One of the biggest issues that Souls games have is that there are a niche fan base of people who basically just like action games. And what ends up happening is, if you only dedicate yourself to those games, or you have a lot of time dedicated into those games, what will inevitably happen is that the skill ceiling for those players rises, while the people who are just getting into the franchise are going to be far behind. Which creates one of the biggest problems Elden Ring has done, and this is me addressing the base game, not Nightreign. Base game Elden Ring did not teach the player how to play the game. While yes, there was a tutorial, what the game ended up ultimately teaching people was how to spam Ashes of War. They were taught how to tank blows from a boss and be able to dish out more damage to ultimately out-heal the boss in the end. They don't know how to read boss mechanics. They don't know how to dodge attacks. They don't know how to look at a boss and see what its weakness to. For example, it's common knowledge that dragons are weak to lightning in Souls games. But if you're someone who's coming to the game and you don't have that prior knowledge, it can be a bit of a hassle for new players to get on board. We saw Asmongold beat all of Elden Ring by power stancing halberds, a strength dex weapon, meaning the 2 most level stats in the entire game, jump attack a boss till it kept stance breaking, and then repeated that all the way through. I didn't think anything of this at the time. By most people, this might be considered a cheese strat, and to be fair, it is. When he ended up getting to the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, he would immediately get his ass handed to him and basically cry on stream about how he couldn't beat the game and it was too hard, till he switched his build to sit behind a shield and block all damage. This is a huge problem, and this is what I mean by players are not taught how to play the game, only to be able to trade blows. This is not me throwing shade at Asmongold necessarily, it's just pointing out the facts. These players do not actually know how to read the boss or learn the boss mechanics. They just do it enough times so they either A, get lucky, or B, they've out-healed the boss and the damage they dealt was higher. Now, I want to take the chance to address some of the criticisms this game has been getting. For one, it being $40, some people say is too expensive. That is relatively cheap in the modern era of games, considering the fact that a Nintendo game is going to cost you like $80, $90, which, whenever you do the math, technically that means a PS5 Pro isn't even really that expensive. It's only like 8 Nintendo games. Somebody laugh, please. Now, with that being said, the price is kind of weird. It's $40, so it's not a full price game. And FromSoft and Bandai Namco even acknowledged that it's not a full price game by making it $40. This is not a complete experience as far as, say, like Elden Ring is, if that was what you were expecting. This game will be getting updates in future. Like, as I previously said, we might see more Nightfarers, and definitely we'll be getting new bosses. I would hope we get more map changes, but we will see that in future if that happens. Some people describe this game as an asset flip, which I find bizarre because they've been using the same assets since Demon's Souls. While the graphics have gotten better, a lot of the weapons from this game are in that. Now, there are certainly new ones, of course, but it's just weird to me that they use a lot of the same ideas and concepts from those games, and that's never a problem, but Nightreign is. And I don't understand the critique of this. Some people say that FromSoft is finally out of ideas, which I have to say that is maybe one of the stupidest things you could have said. To say FromSoft is completely creatively bankrupt should be considered a joke. Another thing this game gets a lot of criticism for is that it didn't use a whole lot of stuff from the DLC, which could effectively, potentially even double the content that was already in the game. The only things that are really used from the DLC is the hippo, as most people point out, and what a lot of people don't point out is that also technically Yoda is from the DLC. Now Yoda's not his real name, but no one actually cares about what his real name is. He's Yoda. He's a tiny little dude with a glowing sword. He's Yoda. But besides these two things, basically nothing from the DLC came over. There was no new enemy types, no new weapons, and no new landmarks that came from the DLC as well. Ultimately, I foresee them adding this in their post-launch content as a huge like DLC update. That's probably what they're going to end up doing if I had to guess. Which again, some people might say is an asset flip. I disagree. This game was not charging you full price and will probably go on sale in future anyways. Overall, with talking to my friends, they really liked this game, even the ones who were on the fence about how was it going to play, or was it going to be good, or was it even going to be worth their times. Most of them would rate it about a 7 or 8. And I would consider that pretty high, considering that you were on the fence about whether or not this game was going to be good or bad. Now, to be fair, a lot of my friends already like Souls games, stuff like that, so that could also be a bit of bias. But still, if they were on the fence about a FromSoft game, that should tell you that this game was going to be divisive from the moment it came out. It's also okay to not like the game because you don't think it's innovative enough, or you think it strays too far away from the original idea that the game is based on. Ultimately, if you're not sold on Elden Ring Nightreign, maybe watch some more videos on it, maybe get some more information, or maybe just pick it up on a sale one day. With all that being said, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know a lot of it's just me rambling, but bye.